Upon the unexpected revelation that the mute antagonist could perceive my innermost thoughts, I feigned ignorance and began to subtly foreshadow events in my mind, how I longed to inform him that when he next visits the heroine, a torrential downpour will ensue, leading to a tragic accident that renders him a cripple. After he inadvertently matches outfits with the male lead, how might I persuade him to change attire to avoid being perceived as a provocateur? The antagonist dutifully adhered to my silent narrations, his gaze towards me growing increasingly intricate. Just when I assumed he had discerned something and was prepared to confront me, a barrage of comments suddenly flashed before my eyes. "This is hilarious," the supporting character has labored to provide spoilers in her mind, only for the antagonist to hear but half of them. The heroine remarked, "When he visits the heroine, a heavy rain will fall, while the antagonist only caught at his location. It is very..." Regardless of the context, the antagonist interpreted everything as an ominous portent. Upon the true heiress's return, the system approached me, declaring that I was the malevolent supporting character within the narrative. It foretold that in the future, driven by jealousy towards the true heiress, I would commit unspeakable acts, leading to the downfall of my adoptive parents and ultimately forcing the true heiress into a corner. From that dire situation, she would emerge triumphant, ascending to the pinnacle of success, while I would reap the bitter consequences of my actions and meet a tragic fate. It further claimed to possess the power to alter my destiny, but in exchange, I was to redeem the mute antagonist, Zhao Jingyu, ensuring he avoided all pivotal plot points outlined. In the original text, amidst the myriad of words, I only absorbed the term mute. Without a moment's hesitation, I prepared my belongings and moved in with him. That very night, as I lay beside Zhao Jingyu, enveloped in a long-lost tranquility, I felt on the verge of tears from sheer emotion. How splendid it was to be with a mute. By marrying a mute, I would no longer be roused at 3 a.m. by my adoptive parents to indulge in trivial gossip, nor would I be thrust into the limelight at banquets to extract secrets from affluent families, only to return and regale them with my findings. Zhao Jingyu observed my tears of joy and amusement. His lips pursed as he retrieved a notebook from the bedside to write. "It is merely a business alliance. If you are unwilling, we can." However, he did not have the opportunity to complete his thought. I snatched the notebook from him, tearing out the page and crumpling it. If he were to reconsider and send me back, my parents would undoubtedly interrogate me, probing for secrets from the Zhao household and inquiring about the origins of Zhao Jingyu's muteness. Just the thought of it made my throat ache. Zhao Jingyu regarded my actions with a look of confusion. I wiped away the tears that had spilled over from my excitement, placing my hand over my heart and gazing earnestly at him. "I am willing. The mere thought of marrying you overwhelms me with emotion." Zhao Jingyu, blushing with embarrassment, clenched his fists to his lips and coughed silently. After a brief pause, I feared I had not conveyed my sincerity sufficiently. As I prepared to express my feelings once more, he hastily retracted the notebook and scribbled a line. "Well, rest early." His hurried writing resulted in somewhat illegible handwriting. Once finished, he retreated beneath the covers as if to escape a deluge. I gazed at his back, a smile creeping upon my lips. At last, there would be no one to dissect my words, analyzing them word by word and steering the conversation in other directions. Hooray! I spent a serene period by Zhao Jingyu's side, free from the incessant gossip of others and the relentless pressure to engage in social niceties. Just as I was basking in this blissful ignorance of the world around me, the system re-emerged. It informed me that my immediate priority was to cultivate a romantic bond with Zhao Jingyu, ensuring that he would become utterly devoted to me. Only then could I expect him to heed my counsel during critical plot developments, thus averting impending crises. However, I soon realized that this task was far from straightforward. Having grown up in a loquacious household, where conversation flowed effortlessly, I found Zhao Jingyu's reticence challenging. Typically, before he could finish a sentence, I would have already leaped to another topic. Over time, whenever I initiated a conversation, he would patiently wait for me to finish, nodding or shaking his head in response, or jotting down a few terse words in his notebook. I mistook his silence for disinterest and hesitated to speak further. Late at night, I would find myself reminiscing about the days when conversations at home were a lively exchange among 8 voices. Lost in thought, I couldn't suppress my tears, using the corner of my blanket to dab at my eyes. As I finally composed myself and peeked out from under the covers, I was met with Zhao Jingyu's complex gaze. When our eyes met, he awkwardly averted his gaze and began to write. "If you miss home, I can accompany you back." Upon noticing my slightly swollen eyes, he paused, then continued. "If you would prefer not to return, that is acceptable too." I fidgeted with the blanket, torn between my feelings. Given the nature of my relationship with Zhou Jingyu, I was uncertain if I could indeed save him. Yet if I were to return home, what if the plot ensnared me, rendering me a mere pawn? Observing my hesitation, a shadow crossed Zhou Jingyu's expression. He sighed softly and wrote, "Take your time to consider. Once you have made your decision, inform me, and I shall prepare the divorce agreement." After I read this, he closed his notebook and pulled the blanket up to sleep. Just as I began to lean towards staying, a message from the true heiress Wen Song arrived. "Isn't it quite peaceful being married to Zhou Jingyu?" I replied affirmatively. She sent a cheerful emoji. "Could you swap places with me for a couple of days? My parents are incessantly chatty." In that fleeting moment, my resolve crystallized. Being with Zhou Jingyu promised tranquility as long as I refrained from initiating conversation to avoid awkwardness. Returning home would be an entirely different matter. As I prepared to respond to Wen Song, she sent another message. "Forget it. Let us pretend I said nothing. A chatterbox can feign ignorance, but a mute like me has no recourse." Having made my decision, I gently nudged Zhou Jingyu's back and announced, "I will not divorce, nor will I return home for the time being." Zhou Jingyu opened his eyes and nodded. With a weight lifted from my heart, I settled down to sleep. At the moment I closed my eyes, I noticed a faint smile playing at the corners of Zhou Jingyu's lips. The following day, Zhou Jingyu seemed to possess an uncanny ability to comprehend my unspoken thoughts. I became increasingly cautious about initiating dialogue, fearing that my words might go unanswered. Consequently, I cherished every opportunity to converse with him, weighing my words carefully before speaking. This time, I intended to follow the system's guidance and suggest some mundane activities that married couples might typically engage in. The moment the phrase, "Could you get me a glass of water?" crossed my mind, Zhou Jingyu turned to me with a look of surprise, promptly rising to fetch a glass of water for me. I initially thought he too desired to nurture our connection and thus brushed it off, casually requesting him to bring me water or fruit. Each time, he seemed to anticipate my unspoken wishes, fulfilling them precisely as they surfaced in my mind. At first, I attributed this to coincidence, but as it occurred repeatedly, I began to sense something amiss. To test him, I deliberately contemplated thoughts he could not possibly deduce. Without a hint of hesitation, he completed the tasks before I could even voice them. After several such trials, I became convinced, though the reason remained elusive. Zhou Jingyu appeared to hear my thoughts. As astonishment washed over me, I quickly devised a plan to accomplish the redemption task set by the system. I understood that simply stating my thoughts would not suffice. Our relationship had not evolved to that degree, and he might perceive me as unhinged. The only viable strategy was to subtly foreshadow events in my mind, knowing he would never suspect my intentions. Thus, when the first pivotal plot point approached, and he discovered that the female lead was the very person who had saved him in his youth, planning to seek her out, I thought, "I wish I could warn Zhou Jingyu that a heavy rain will soon fall when he goes to meet the female lead, causing an accident that will leave him crippled." Zhou Jingyu's eyes widened in shock, and his ears flushed crimson. He opened his notebook to write, but hesitated at the last moment. After a long pause, he glanced down at his black trousers, as if he had resolved to act on a newfound determination, and wrote, "What did you just say?" I feigned ignorance, gazing at him with a puzzled expression. "Just now, I didn't say anything." Zhou Jingyu's face turned red. He crossed out "say" and replaced it with "think." I blinked innocently, maintaining my facade of confusion. Zhou Jingyu tapped his pen on the paper, but ultimately wrote nothing. He then turned and went upstairs to change into looser clothing. I watched him for a while, secretly rejoicing. Clearly, my foreshadowing had made an impact. He was not only startled into silence, but also hesitant to leave the room. If only I had made my warning more severe, he would surely have been frightened into avoiding the plot altogether. With this thought in mind, I glanced at him, a smile curving my lips. Zhou Jingyu stiffened, subtly crossing his legs. Moments later, he grabbed a cushion and positioned it strategically to shield his legs. After completing this, he uncapped his pen and wrote, "What's wrong?" I averted my gaze and casually replied, "Nothing, I just think you look quite handsome in that outfit." Zhou Jingyu tightened his grip on his notebook, appearing somewhat uncomfortable. Realizing that I could rely on my mental foreshadowing to help Zhou Jingyu evade the plot, I became increasingly cautious about the limited times he might overhear my thoughts. I hesitated to contemplate my desires, opting instead to express them directly. Zhou Jingyu never declined my requests and would even inquire proactively before I could articulate my wishes in detail. As a result, our relationship grew closer, until one day, he received an invitation to a banquet. Standing at the doorway of the cloakroom, I watched him select his attire. Suddenly, I recalled that it was at this very banquet that Zhou Jingyu had worn an outfit in the same color scheme as the female leads, leading guests to mistakenly believe they were a couple. At that moment, the male lead's jealousy was at its peak, viewing Zhou Jingyu as a rival and undermining him in business. Following this incident, Zhou Jingyu's career began to decline. The thought of enduring financial hardship sent a shiver down my spine, prompting me to blurt out, "Perhaps you should change. That outfit doesn't suit you." Zhou Jingyu furrowed his brow, lifting the suit to scrutinize it once more, ultimately disregarding my suggestion. He even took out his phone to type, attempting to persuade me. "I think it looks great. It matches your dress perfectly." My mind was consumed with thoughts on how to persuade him to change it, hardly paying attention to his words. Just as Zhou Jingyu was about to close the dressing room door to change, I couldn't help but think, he'll inevitably run into another woman wearing the same outfit, and her husband will see him as a rival, leading to embarrassment. How can I make him change into something else? Zhou Jingyu paused in his motion to close the door, retracting his hand to unfasten a button. It seemed he understood my concern. I felt a surge of joy, yet my face remained insistent. "Why are you not changing yet?" Zhou Jingyu did not respond, merely unfastening another button, revealing an expanse of pale skin. I couldn't help but steal another glance. After a prolonged moment of observation, it became evident that he had no intention of changing. Just as I was about to stoke the fire further, Zhou Jingyu took out his phone once more, typing, "Could you help me choose an outfit?" This was precisely what I desired. I immediately stepped into the dressing room, haphazardly selecting a piece to hand to him. Fearing he might revert to his original choice, I dared not leave, standing there to await his change. Zhou Jingyu, perhaps feeling awkward to urge me away, unfastened another button, but made no further movement. I feigned ignorance to his intentions, remaining stationary. Ultimately, it was Zhou Jingyu who conceded first, avoiding my gaze. He flushed as he removed his shirt. Watching him pick up the outfit I had chosen, a smile crept across my lips. I swiftly yanked the original piece behind me, denying him the chance to put it back on. Zhou Jingyu cast a glance my way, and for some reason his movement slowed. Fearing he might reconsider, I kept the original garment tightly concealed. Aware of his discomfort at being observed, I intensified my gaze on him, urging him to don the outfit I had selected. Zhou Jingyu's face turned crimson once more, yet his pace remained unhurried. Growing anxious, I organized my thoughts, intending to exaggerate my urgency. If you simply remove this piece and don the one I chose, it would resolve everything. Why the reluctance to change? It's exasperating. Zhou Jingyu's movements became even more sluggish. Just as my patience wore thin, and I was about to assist him, he finally dressed in the new outfit. He retrieved his phone to type, "You can express your thoughts directly. There's no need for subterfuge." His fingers danced across the screen, but he did not complete his sentence. Confused, I looked at him. "I'm not thinking about anything." Zhou Jingyu hesitated, wanting to say something but holding back. Seizing the opportunity, I inquired again, "What am I thinking?" He pointed at his own body. What did that mean? I was lost. Despite his hints, I remained baffled. With a sigh of resignation, he typed again, urging me to change outfits. I had initially intended to refuse, but reconsidered. He had indeed changed. And what if he encountered some conflict with the male lead? As long as I was present, everything would remain under control. With that thought, I casually grabbed a dress to change into. Zhou Jingyu positioned himself in my path, blocking my way. I speculated on his intentions. "Do you not want me to go?" Yet, why would he urge me? Zhou Jingyu shook his head, stepping aside to allow me some space. As I took a step forward, he reached out to grasp the tassel on my dress. He persistently engaged in small antics. I halted, questioning, "What exactly do you want?" Zhou Jingyu regarded me silently. I pretended to return the dress. "If you don't want me to go, then I want tea." Zhou Jingyu, in a flurry, typed, "No." After sending that message, he fell silent once more. My patience waned, and just as I was about to crumple the dress and thrust it into his arms, he continued typing. "Could you wear the black one?" To ensure I understood, he swiftly turned and fetched the dress. I scrutinized it for a long while, unable to discern anything remarkable. Zhou Jingyu, fearing I might refuse, hesitated before typing again. "I'll wear black too." Though unspoken, I understood his intent. He wished to coordinate our outfits, yet took such a long time to lay the groundwork. It was truly amusing. I accepted the dress he offered, and headed to change. As I passed by him, I couldn't resist saying, "Darling, next time just say it directly. No need for all this build-up." It was merely a dress change, and the reasoning provided was hardly excessive. I wouldn't he refuse him? Zhou Jingyu opened his mouth slightly, a smile involuntarily forming at the corners. Having achieved our respective goals, both Zhou Jingyu and I felt elated. He tentatively brushed against my hand, which I instinctively grasped. Zhou Jingyu seemed dissatisfied with this position, shifting his fingers to intertwine with mine. Thus, we made our way to the door. Female lead Su Yun, hearing the commotion, brightened and called out, "Zhou Jingyu." She hurried over, lifting the hem of her dress. The male lead followed closely behind, his gaze directed at Zhou Jingyu, brimming with overt hostility. A shiver ran through me as I recalled this segment of the plot. Next, the female lead would, in her excitement upon seeing her childhood companion, reach out to touch Zhou Jingyu's head, which would provoke jealousy in the male lead, leading to confrontation. Ultimately, due to the antagonist's ties with the main characters and Zhou Jingyu's unique nature as the antagonist, whatever he did would result in him being targeted by the male lead. It was perilous. Very perilous. I hastily replayed this portion of the plot in my mind, leaving no room for embellishment. My thoughts were solely focused on how to defuse this impending crisis. However, the plot raced through my mind, and Zhou Jingyu's arm tightened around me. His face flushed, and he couldn't even reach for his phone, silently mouthing to me, "Now? Can we wait until we get home?" What was he mumbling about? I couldn't comprehend. All I knew was that Su Yun had now positioned herself right in front of Zhou Jingyu, preparing to pat his head as she did in their childhood. Gritting my teeth, I was about to shove Zhou Jingyu aside to take his place, but he acted faster, extending his hand to shake with Su Yun. She realized what was happening just as she was about to speak, and a crowd began to encircle us. Zhou Jingyu wrapped his arm around my waist and took a few steps back. Once we were away from the crowd, he pulled out his phone to type, "I want to go home." How rude. We had just arrived. I ignored him. Zhou Jingyu typed again, "I want to go home." I took the phone from him and typed back, "In a bit. If we left right after arriving, what if the male lead thought we were disrespecting him? What if he decided to target us?" Having narrowly avoided so much of the plot, I couldn't afford to trip on something trivial. Zhou Jingyu furrowed his brow, snatching the phone back to type. Seeing his serious expression, I assumed it was something of great importance. Instead, when he handed me the phone, I saw, "What if you change your mind later?" I casually added a question mark. Zhou Jingyu nearly made it explicit. "It's exactly what you were just thinking." I hadn't even thinking of anything significant. I merely considered the plot and how I might replace him in being patted on the head by the female lead. None of that warranted a return home. Observing that I still appeared perplexed after a long moment of contemplation, Zhou Jingyu sighed in exasperation. Zhou Jingyu resignedly closed his eyes and retrieved his phone. I initially assumed he had given up, so I didn't pay him any further attention, focusing instead on the movements of the male and female leads. As the banquet progressed past its midpoint, I noticed the protagonists drifting further away from us, and I thought it unlikely that any unforeseen incidents would occur. Just as I was about to inform Zhou Jingyu that it was time to head home, I caught sight of his pale complexion, as if he were enduring some torment. Alarmed, I exclaimed, "Zhou Jingyu?" At last, my attention shifted to him. He swayed slightly, feebly pushing his phone toward me. On the screen were 2 lines of pre-typed messages. "I feel unwell. I want to go home." It appeared he was attempting to substantiate his claim. After reading the messages, I lifted my gaze only to see Zhou Jingyu pressing his fist against his lips, stifling a couple of silent coughs. With little regard for anything else, I immediately took his arm and guided him toward the exit. "All right, let us head home." A smile involuntarily crept onto Zhou Jingyu's lips. It seemed as if he felt somewhat better in an instant. As I held his hand and walked him out, I remained vigilant of his condition. Zhou Jingyu truly appeared to be quite feeble. Once we finally reached the car, he could no longer hold himself upright and slumped softly against my shoulder. After a moment, he seemed to reconsider and slowly straightened up, only to inadvertently knock his head against the car window. The impact sounded rather severe. Following a loud thud, Zhou Jingyu's entire face flushed crimson. I quickly pressed his head back down onto my shoulder and gently massaged the spot he had just hit. "Is your head spinning?" Zhou Jingyu nodded weakly. I promptly instructed the driver, "To the hospital." Upon hearing this, Zhou Jingyu immediately straightened up and shook his head. Whether it was due to urgency or weakness rendering him unable to lift his phone, it fell to the ground twice. After struggling to type out a complete message, he managed to write, "I want to go." I glared at him and asked, "How old are you this year?" Zhou Jingyu pursed his lips and lowered his gaze to type out a 28. I nearly lost my composure. After a quick adjustment of my expression, I maintained a stern facade and declared, "No, you must go." There's no room for discussion. Despite my insistence, Zhou Jingyu remained adamant about not going. The driver glanced between me and Zhou Jingyu, clearly torn. I took a deep breath, planning to concoct a story to persuade Zhou Jingyu to visit the hospital. However, just as I began to fabricate a tale, an epiphany struck me. Hospital. Zhou Jingyu. Reluctance to go. I suddenly recalled that the system had specifically noted Zhou Jingyu's aversion to this place. Best to avoid it altogether. I bit my lip and reached out to touch his forehead. He didn't have a fever, and his complexion appeared significantly improved compared to before. It seemed unnecessary to go at this moment. I pressed his head back against my shoulder and conceded, then let us first return home and monitor your condition. Zhou Jingyu offered no objections and nodded obediently. Upon returning home, Zhou Jingyu collapsed onto the sofa. I turned to fetch a thermometer to check his temperature. After taking just a few steps, my phone buzzed with a message from Zhou Jingyu. Wife, I feel so hot. Instinctively, I turned to look. Zhou Jingyu lay back on the sofa, his face slightly flushed. Simultaneously, another message arrived. Feel and see if I have a fever. I instinctively approached him. When I reached out to touch him, his face was warm, but his temperature felt normal. Still somewhat concerned, I said, wait a moment, I'll find the thermometer. Zhou Jingyu typed, the thermometer isn't accurate. I shot him a sideways glance. Zhou Jingyu deleted that line and retyped. What I mean is, it may not accurately reflect the temperature on my forehead. Where else should I check? I could tell he was genuinely unwell. He kept saying things that made little sense. Ignoring his comments, I retrieved the thermometer and took his temperature. It was normal, yet Zhou Jingyu insisted he felt unwell. He refused to go to the hospital. Coincidentally, when Song sent me a message sharing a reading list, I casually inquired, Zhou Jingyu has been saying all night that he feels unwell, but his temperature is normal. And he wants to go to the hospital. When Song quickly asked several questions, to which I replied negatively. After receiving my answers, she fell silent. Seizing the opportunity, I exited the chat interface, taking a screenshot of Zhou Jingyu's recent messages to forward to Song. He keeps saying he is hot, yet insists that the temperature on his forehead isn't accurate. When Song replied instantly, case solved, he is faking it to seduce you. I blinked, questioning whether I had misread the situation. Yet, Zhou Jingyu's persistent messages urging me to check him made it impossible to doubt. I turned around and walked toward him under his expectant gaze, extending my hand to begin unbuttoning his shirt. Zhou Jingyu shivered. My fingers traced along his collarbone and descended. Where should I touch to discern the truth? Zhou Jingyu pressed his lips together, his ears completely flushed. I suspected he was genuinely feverish. Every area my fingers brushed felt alarmingly warm. I began to feel uneasy and wanted to withdraw my hand, but Zhou Jingyu grasped my wrist, guiding my hand to his pectorals and then to his abdomen. He halted there. At this point, there was nothing left for me to decipher. When Song had already seen through the essence of the situation, Zhou Jingyu was merely feigning illness. The thought of this made me indignant, and I poked at his abdominal muscles. I had been diligently providing him with story spoilers, and here he was, engaging in these antics. Even his attempts at seduction were so subtly executed. Zhou Jingyu inhaled sharply. My hand froze in midair before I quickly withdrew it. Zhou Jingyu struggled to type on his phone. Did you finish touching so soon? Of course not. Just as that thought crossed my mind, Zhou Jingyu handed me his phone once more, displaying. Then continue, you need to touch more. Otherwise, the temperature won't be accurate. Just as I comprehended that, I was suddenly bombarded by a stream of comments. I'm impressed. The antagonist is truly going to great lengths to seduce the female lead. Feigning illness for an entire evening, almost desperate to speak, but thankfully the true heiress saw through the ruse. In truth, one can't blame the antagonist for only reacting to the notion of being touched. After all, he can only hear half of the thoughts. Thinking back, it's amusing. The supporting character said there would be heavy rain when he went to the female lead, but what the antagonist heard was, his area is very large. The supporting character remarked that the female lead would touch his head, expressing a desire to be touched instead. What the antagonist heard was, she wants to touch him. My eyes widened in realization. No wonder. Each time I provided Zhou Jingyu with spoilers, he appeared so astonished. I had thought he was shocked by the plot. In retrospect, it was clear he believed I was coveting his physical form. The mere thought of what Zhou Jingyu had been hearing over these days made my scalp tingle. Nevertheless, glancing at the still scrolling comments and then at Zhou Jingyu beside me, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Zhou Jingyu was hearing the complete version of the thoughts after all. Lost in contemplation, I felt Zhou Jingyu gently tug at my fingers, urging me to continue touching him. Taking a deep breath, I resolved to verify the truth of the comments. If they were false, it would be a joyous outcome for all. If true, I do want nothing more than to burrow into a hole. Zhou Jingyu tugged at my fingers once more. I turned to face him, silently formulating the most direct and risky thought in my mind. The moment I finished that thought, warmth surged to my cheeks. Struggling to suppress my embarrassment and awkwardness, I gazed intently at Zhou Jingyu for a long while. He showed little reaction, only appearing somewhat uncomfortable under my scrutiny. He took his phone and typed, "Wife, your face is so red." I paid him no heed, merely continuing to stare at him intently. My ears felt warm, but everything else seemed fine. It felt as though he had heard the very whispers of my heart. Yet, after some contemplation, unease lingered within me. Tentatively, I inquired, "Did you hear anything just now?" Zhou Jingyu shook his head, a look of bewilderment clouding his eyes. I dared not gaze at him any longer. Turning away, I mentally wove the thought I had just entertained into the narrative. I wish to inform him that the male lead will invite him to a countryside horse ranch tomorrow, where a horse will go out of control. The moment that thought settled, Zhou Jingyu's body tensed suddenly. The comments erupted. I knew the antagonist would misconstrue that as when Shuang wanting to ride him. Hee, little Zhou must be on the verge of bursting. The atmosphere is ripe for it. Hurry and ride. I shut my eyes, the weight on my heart finally lifting. Zhou Jingyu stared at me with eager anticipation. Noticing my hesitation, he even beckoned with his fingers. When I glanced over, he nodded vigorously twice. Under his expectant gaze, I abruptly rose and fled upstairs. It was only when the door to my room clicked shut that I felt I could finally breathe. The comments expressed their disappointment, relentlessly urging me to descend and transform Zhou Jingyu's perceived thoughts into reality. I paid them no heed, instead revisiting the plot that had yet to unfold in my mind. I pondered how best to offer Zhou Jingyu a glimpse of the future, ensuring he could avoid the narrative without perceiving me as someone preoccupied solely with thoughts of kissing and touching him. The pivotal scenes remaining were few. After mentally organizing my thoughts, I rearranged a segment repeatedly. Once satisfied that no misunderstanding could arise on Zhou Jingyu's part, I began to type a brief skit. 2 minutes later, Zhou Jingyu sent another message. "Wife, I truly feel a bit feverish. You can touch me to verify. I feel wronged." The moment I saw his message notification, an awkward memory surged forth. I closed my eyes and swiped away his message, not daring to look at it. 5 minutes later, Zhou Jingyu wobbled upstairs. His shirt buttons, hastily fastened, were only half done, lending him an air of unintentional allure. I stole a glance before looking away, my mind racing with apprehension, fearing an unforeseen turn of events. Zhou Jingyu began to hear my normal thoughts again. Noticing my averted gaze, he sent another message. "Wife, it's really hot. Please come and check on me." I did not lift my head. "If you're feeling this unwell, should I accompany you to the hospital?" Zhou Jingyu fell silent. However, it was not a complete absence of movement. He began to circle the bed, seemingly aimless. I turned my face away, and he merely shifted his path. I found myself perplexed. The comments I had just tried to ignore resurfaced at the perfect moment. I'm dying of laughter. The female supporting character's thoughts were all overheard by the antagonist just now. She was thinking about how the female lead would encounter the antagonist while buying a belt for the male lead, perfectly allowing him to help the male lead try it on, leading to the male lead's jealousy. And yet the antagonist misconstrued it as the female supporting character wanting to take his belt. Help. Ha ha ha. The antagonist doesn't care whether it's black or white. He hears it all as Phoenix. I cautiously lifted my gaze, observing Zhou Jingyu's serious demeanor. It was unfathomable that he had accepted my colorful thoughts so readily and awaited me to manifest them into reality. I glanced at him, about to speak, when his message arrived first. "Wife. My hands lack strength. Could you help me unfasten it?" Amidst the clamorous comments, I reached out towards Zhou Jingyu's belt. He instantly held his breath. I deliberately moved slowly, so much so that Zhou Jingyu couldn't contain himself, letting out a slight gasp. My heart raced as I removed his belt and proceeded to unbutton his shirt. Zhou Jingyu made no attempt to stop me. Instead, his eyes brimmed with anticipation. Once the zipper was down, I withdrew my hand, halting further actions. The comments clamored. Continue. Continue. What could possibly be beyond the viewing capacity of my esteemed members? Antagonist. Take the initiative. Both of you, be proactive. Even if it tires you, don't neglect us. My face burned with embarrassment. I disregarded the comments and turned to Zhou Jingyu, asking, "Are you pretending to be ill today?" The comments were indeed correct. I needed Zhou Jingyu to express what he wished for me to do. Zhou Jingyu hesitated, then averted his gaze guiltily. I lifted his chin with a finger, compelling him to meet my eyes. Why the pretense? Zhou Jingyu's expression was a struggle. After a lengthy pause, he closed his eyes as if resigned to fate. Then, he typed on his phone, "I want you to touch me." I glanced at it and continued, "Well, you could have just said that." Zhou Jingyu sighed. "You'd think I was strange." That was true. If it weren't for the comments informing me that he could only hear half of my thoughts, I would have found his behavior quite baffling. At a loss for words, I grappled with whether to explain my thoughts. Before I could speak, Zhou Jingyu turned his screen towards me again. "Then I'll be direct now. Touch me." I tapped his lips, the implication unmistakable. Zhou Jingyu pressed his lips together, remaining silent. Initially, I had only been testing the waters, harboring little hope. Yet in the next moment, Zhou Jingyu spoke in a hoarse voice. "Wife, touch me." I stared at him, my heart pounding like thunder. The comments were filled with astonishment. I can't believe the antagonist hasn't spoken in 10 years, and a single sentence from the female supporting character unlocked him. How remarkable. Could this be the power of love? Well, it's not that surprising. The antagonist's mutism is rooted in psychological factors. He simply didn't wish to speak. And now that he encounters someone he wants to talk to, he naturally does. It's great that he can speak. Being able to converse opens up possibilities for... As the comments grew increasingly audacious, I dared not look further. Grabbing Zhou Jingyu by the collar, I kissed him. He stiffened momentarily, but quickly responded. The next morning, upon opening my eyes, the first thing I saw was the comments. I declare this is the first story I've read where the antagonist and the female supporting character missed their chance for disaster because they overslept. How splendid. The antagonist and the female supporting character have yet to commit a single misdeed, and from here on, they can continue to bask in sweetness. But it's genuinely hilarious, ha. Even without their involvement, the male lead can still experience jealousy. The conversation had gradually veered off course. I had no desire to further engage. I merely replayed the key plot points the system had provided me in my mind. I realized that the belt incident was indeed the last pivotal plot point. What I had once deemed impossible had been resolved with ease. My spirit soared, and I was immediately inclined to pursue other endeavors. For instance, I could once again admire Zhou Jingyu's restrained yet fervent demeanor. I suppressed the urge to smile, concocting a new narrative. Unlike the previous night, where I feared Zhou Jingyu might misunderstand, this version would ensnare him from any angle. Yet after contemplating for a while, Zhou Jingyu remained unresponsive. When he finally caught my gaze, he even flashed me a subtle smile. I frowned. What could that mean? Why was he smiling? Did he see through my intentions of crafting a story for him? Even if he did, why was he not cooperating today after feigning illness yesterday? Surely, once something is acquired, it should be cherished. Anger surged within me, and I sat up abruptly. Zhou Jingyu, I never expected you to be this kind of person. Changing your stance faster than one can turn a page. Yesterday, you heard my thoughts and even pretended to be ill. Today, you act as if you heard nothing. Let us get a divorce. I finished my tirade and attempted to step past him. At that critical moment, Zhou Jingyu yanked me back. He encircled my waist, leaving me momentarily at a loss for words. I can hear your thoughts, yet just now, you were devoid of any. My struggle momentarily ceased as I instinctively sought the barrage of comments, but even they seemed perplexed, merely mocking Zhou Jingyu as a desperate fool. I turned to gaze at him. You truly cannot hear anything? Zhou Jingyu shook his head. I contemplated once more, yet his expression remained one of confusion. Perhaps it was due to the narrative having reached its conclusion. He could no longer perceive my innermost musings. With a sigh, I lamented the loss. No longer would I witness Zhou Jingyu in such a state. My spirits dampened, I pushed him away, intending to pour myself a glass of water. However, before I could make a move, Zhou Jingyu leaned in closer. Just say it. I could manage half a sentence. I can guess. How was I to articulate this? Merely pondering it was already mortifying. After a prolonged pause, I managed to utter, it's simply that, at times, it would be quite nice if you were like you used to be. Zhou Jingyu looked perplexed. Not speaking? I shook my head. He continued to guess. Not having a mouth? How is that different from not speaking? I pondered carefully. It's more about being reserved and restrained, and then, hesitatingly inviting. I left the thought unfinished as Zhou Jingyu reclined. I understand. just like last night, uncertain of whether you want or like my gestures. His insight was rather commendable. Just as I was about to join him in the act, I suddenly recalled the most crucial question. I furrowed my brows and asked, "Wait, when did you start liking me?" Zhou Jingyu replied with conviction. "On the day we got married. I hadn't done anything remarkable that day." Zhou Jingyu bit his lip, slightly bashful. "The way you snuggled under the blankets and giggled was utterly adorable. So, that was when he fell for me. Quite remarkable." I pressed on. "Then why did you seem so disinterested afterward? Had it not been for that, I might not have considered letting go." Zhou Jingyu's voice grew softer. "I often texted you, fearing you would find it bothersome and not wish to read them. But when I saw you looking a bit down, I still decided to send messages. As for speaking, perhaps it just slipped out in the heat of the moment last night." Upon finishing, he cautiously observed my expression, anxious to see if I was upset. All the questions I sought answers to had now been addressed. I urged him, "All right, let us quickly get back into character." Zhou Jingyu's face flushed, his body tensing with nervousness. "I'm ready." Time seemed to stretch endlessly. I grew so weary that I could scarcely move my fingers. Zhou Jingyu leaned in and pressed a kiss to my lips. "Wife, whatever version of me you wish to see next time, I can be. I love you." I felt somewhat dazed. Just as Zhou Jingyu, disheartened by my silence, began to lose hope, I spoke. "I feel the same." The end of the narrative. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give a thumbs up in support. Until we meet again in the next story.